Are you practicing to get better at drills, or are you practicing to be able to compete in the game? Those practices look different.
Coaches, welcome to the Better Coaching Podcast powered by RYG Athletics, a proud provider of Nike sports camps. The mission of this podcast is simple. We want to help coaches get better. I'm excited to welcome James Leath to the podcast today. James is a mental performance coach and the founder of Unleash the Athlete. With a bachelor's in communication and a master's in performance psychology and almost 20 years of coaching experience, James teaches leadership, character, and mental residency to elite performers in sport, theater, and business through keynotes, workshops, and online courses. James has worked for companies like IMG Academy, USA Swimming, the Positive Coaching Alliance, American Heart Association, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Chicago Bulls. In this episode, we're going to be discussing integrating mental performance into our coaching, the impact of coaches, and communication and culture strategies you can implement. Now to the show. Enjoy. Coaches, welcome back to the podcast. Excited to be joined by James Leath today. James, thanks for taking time to talk with me. And I'd love it if you just started off and shared with the audience a little bit about you and your journey in sport and coaching.
Oh man, we only have an hour, right? Okay. Well, Luke, thanks for having me. This is fantastic. And we are connected through a mutual friend, John O'Sullivan. And so, how do you know John?
I interviewed John a few years ago when I was getting into the podcasting space and sharing content in a similar vein. And I followed some of his work. It had been impactful for me in my coaching. And just was inspired by what he was doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's one of my favorite people. It was his birthday a couple days ago. But my love for youth sports it kind of starts with him as far as like getting out there in the public, because I was in this entrepreneurial group that was specific on how to work in youth sports, but then also have it support your living and do it as a job. John came on as a guest, and that was probably about 10 years ago. Before that, I mean, I started in high school wanting to play every sport possible. I had an alcoholic father who wasn't really around, and so my coaches were raising me. So I was just like from sport to sport to sport, and I had great coaches and I had bad coaches. And when I graduated high school, I played a lot of varsity sports, and one day I want to be an AD. I want to be a coach. I want to do that kind of stuff. My journey took me away from that path because once I got into teaching and coaching, I saw how difficult it was to actually survive by financially by being a coach and being a teacher. And then the pandemic, not the pandemic. That was the second thing. The 2007, there was this financial meltdown in California. A bunch of teachers were laid off, especially in my district, Central Unified. And it was my first year of teaching, so of course I got the axe, but I felt better about it because the superintendent called me into his office and he was like, "Listen, I've tried to keep you as long as I could, but gotta let you go." And I'm like, there are awful teachers that have tenure that are they're not losing their jobs. And he's like, "I know." I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way to serve these coaches than to actually be a teacher. So it was a blessing, because then I started my journey. As far as like sports psychology, I went back, got my master's. I had been doing personal training and boot camps and stuff, and working, Biggest Loser down in Malibu, like just doing a whole bunch of stuff. But that really changed the trajectory. Was now I'm going to focus on the mental side, and got a job at IMG Academy. Moved out to Florida, Sarasota, where your parents are at, and that was such a cool experience working at IMG. IMG, I always explain it as, if your listeners don't know what it is, they probably do, but it's like Hogwarts for athletes. It's like the best athletes in the world go there. Not so much to develop, they're already kind of amazing, but IMG just puts them over the top. They've got incredible people there. That the athletic and personal development department, I was the head of leadership development. And the best thing about there was the reps. I got so many reps to work with athletes from every level, 9-year-old tennis players to professional football players to international rugby superstars. It was just amazing. The only reason I left is my dad had a stroke and he lived in Dallas, and I moved to Dallas to be with him in the last year of his life. But then I got picked up by the Cowboys, and that was a cool experience to work in pro sports. Uh, Football season was over. I head up to Chicago, working with the Bulls, and then the pandemic hit. I became a digital person, did everything online because nothing on stage was open, and all the teams, weren't practicing. And then through randomness, I finally found my way back to Florida. And so now I work day job as the mental performance coach and strength coach for the police and fire of West Palm Beach. And so I do sports a lot. Like I still write books and I'm still traveling every weekend speaking and got some really cool programs coming up. But my day job is I get to hang out with cops and firefighters and help them to not get burnt out and help them to deal with stress and relationship problems and all this other stuff. And it's very, very rewarding. And that's
Wow, that's
where
so
I got
cool.
up, man.
Man, what a cool journey. That's awesome work. There's a couple things that actually I wanna hit on before we go more into coaching and performance. One, my brother's a firefighter, so I think it's awesome what you're doing. I Just some of the stuff that he sees and is exposed to,
It's a lot, man.
it's a lot. It's a lot to handle, and to have somebody supporting people in those lines of work, that's so cool. So thanks for doing that.
And the firefighters
Uh,
very, very receptive to it. Every
yeah,
station that I've gone to, different stations run differently. They're just like, "Can you come back next week?" And hitting me up. We have this app in O2X, and like, man, the firefighters are amazing. The cops are great too, but like the fire
yeah,
really taking advantage.
that's
I've only
awesome.
been here about 6
Yeah,
months.
yeah, and then I can I ask a personal question about your
Sure,
dad?
of course.
You grew up with an alcoholic father,
Mhm.
and you're working probably what was your dream job at the time at IMG, I'm guessing,
Best job.
um,
Yeah.
and you left it
Mhm.
to go take care of him in Dallas. Why? Did you have healing in your relationship with your dad? That just struck me as like,
Yeah.
wow, you grew up in a tough spot, probably a tough relationship with your dad, but you made a huge sacrifice to move and go care for him.
I mean, that's is a beautiful question, and it definitely deserves being talked about because even though my dad was an alcoholic, he was never abusive. He was just absent. Alcohol kind of blunts your emotions. And my mom had taken off in 8th grade and went and raised my brother. So it was just me and my dad. My dad was just he was just doing the best he could. He told me, look, you got to either have a job or you have to be on a team. So I was like, okay. Side note, my grandfather was Arnold Schwarzenegger's stuntman for like 15 years. So in 8th grade, and I have an essay I wrote. I wanted to be two things. I wanted to be a stand-up comedian or a stuntman, preferably both. That's what I wanted to do. And when my grandfather passed away, uh, his buddies told me, "Be a good athlete, be the best athlete." And so my motivation was not to go play college football or be a professional football. I wanted to be a stuntman, and that's all I wanted to be. So, when my father, being the alcoholic he was still loving. He just, my brother was sick and his wife left him. And, so I think oftentimes we forget that our parents are just people who are trying to figure out life. My mom, she took off when I was in 8th grade, and I thought she left my dad because he was sick. He had Parkinson's. And I held on to that for 20 years. I was angry at her and stuff. And then I finally had a conversation with her. And what I realized is that neither one of my parents, like they agreed to never talk trash on each other. So I never heard my mom say anything negative about my dad. I never heard anything negative from my dad about my mom. But then as my dad was sick, he told me a lot of stuff that I didn't know. And he was like, "Oh, she didn't leave me because I was sick. She left me because I was an alcoholic gambler and I lost all our money." And I was like, "Oh, that changes everything." Like, oh my gosh. And so when you can look at your parents as just people who are they're trying to figure it out just like we are, and things are coming at them. And then they also have to keep us alive as kids. Um, my father, when he got sick, I was at IMG Academy, and just to give you an idea, my average day is like "Hey, James, the Raiders are here. They want to talk to you about leadership." "Okay." "When?" They're like, "In 5 minutes." "Okay." And so then you go downstairs and you pretend like, you had this thing planned out. Or, some university comes in with all of their parks and rec people and they want you to talk about communication. And man, I had this boss, Taryn, and she was just incredible. Like, it would always just be like, "Hey, here's an idea." And I'd be like, "Boom, perfect." And I'd go and I'd go do it. I loved it. And my father had a stroke, so I would get on Spirit Airline every other Saturday and I'd spend the day with him, come home on Sunday, and then come back to you. You said it. It was my dream job. It's today to this day. Like, it's the best job I ever had. I wouldn't be surprised if one day I'm back there. But I love what I do now. Eventually I was just like, "Dad, do you want me to move out here?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Done." So I went back, and my boss's boss, a guy by the name of David Hesse, his father had some illness problems. So he understood. And he was like, "You're leaving, aren't you?" I go, "Yeah, I'm leaving." And so I left. And that was hard because when you leave a job like that, it's going to get filled by someone who's never going to leave. Because
Mm.
I was never going to leave. I loved it to this day, and it's great. Um, but yeah, so I went, and zero regrets. I got 9 months with my dad. But the thing is he had changed, and he showed me that a man can change. He stopped drinking. He met a woman. He started trying to take care of himself, and life of not taking care of yourself just kind of catches up with you. So I got 9 months with him. And every morning, and I got an apartment in between the Cowboys facility out there in Jerry Jones Land and my dad's rest home. So I would go to my dad, I'd pick up coffee and donut, and I'd hang out with him, and then I'd drive to work, and then I come home, and that was my life, and I loved it. And then finally he passed away, and I have no regrets, like zero. And family is he was all I had. My brother had already passed away. My mom moved to Alabama, and I've reconciled with my mom. So I didn't know this would be a therapy session, but I'm just letting you know
Yeah,
everything's come
yeah,
up.
that's great.
So, like, life is
It's
good.
real.
I love my mom.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful, wonderful person. She lives in Alabama with her husband. My brother passed away a long time ago. My dad passed away in 2017. And so, the couple of the books that I wrote, like one of the books I wrote, is called The Empowered Coach, and it's basically a love letter to all my coaches for raising me. And the first couple pages is just like, "Dear Mr. Denton, dear Mr. Snyder, dear Mrs. Randall." And it's just like these things that I got from them. And then the whole book is about bringing the game back to the athletes, the student athletes, the humans, the kids that are playing the sports. And man, it was just like, so I've continued this work. Like, on the weekends, I'll go and I'll work with the school for a half a day or a full day, or I'll come in on a Friday and work with the students and and the coaches. Or Puno Academy is one of my favorite places to go. I go out there in Honolulu and spend a week with their coaches. It's something that I'm just going to do the rest of my life. It's something that I love to do. The project that I'm working on right now is specifically to help coaches know what to talk about on Monday. Like, mental performance is so important. And if we don't address it intentionally, then everything that's negative about mental performance will show up. So that's one of the things I'm working on right now. I don't,
Yeah, I love it.
oh, my dad. Yeah. So do
Yeah.
I regret leaving IMG? For any other reason than being with my father? I would, but I don't. Even though I love it there, and the people who are still there, I miss them. So
Oh, it's powerful. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate your honesty there. And I think it's just worth highlighting or admiring what you said. Hey, our parents are humans too, doing their best to figure it out.
yeah, we got to give them a little grace.
Yeah,
They
a
kept
little
us
bit.
alive.
My wife and I have 3 little kids, and we've got to remind ourselves every day, like, "Hey, we're just gonna keep doing our best." And,
I
like,
mean, keep them alive.
we screw this up a lot as parents, and we're gonna like, oh, man, last week, I snapped at my oldest. I was such a jerk in this situation. I was like, "That was bad. I gotta go apologize to him," you know? Like, we gotta, 1, give our parents grace, give ourselves grace, but parenting's hard. Like you too. And then once you knew more of the story too, it changes your perspective. You know, as kids, you're often missing context for what's happened. And so
Well,
Yeah,
there's a
man. I
lot of
just,
parallels with coaching
yeah,
and parenting,
totally.
right? Like
So
you just
many.
said, like I don't have kids. I had a thing happen to me when I was younger, and my reproductive area, like I'm just not able to have kids, or not able to impregnate, I guess. And like, that was frustrating because I would love to be a dad. Oh, like more than anything in the world. And I don't hate anybody except a bad dad. I'm just like, dude, you have no idea what beautiful thing you have in this world. But then you go and you apologize to your child for losing your temper. That makes you feel better, but it also shows them that they're taking notes. Like our kids, our athletes are constantly watching us on how to be an adult, and and we don't know what they're going to remember. I remember the most random things about my coaches, but it was never more apparent than when this kid, his name was Maddie, he called me up. He's a sophomore in college. The last time I talked to him, he's a sixth grader on my football team. So it's been a long time, which is one of the reasons why I still have the same phone number, because they call. So he calls me up and it says Maddie's mom. Like it's I'm like, you got hello, like Mrs. Ontiveros, what's up? And it was him, and he was just like, hey, I've got this assignment that I have to reach out to somebody that had a big influence on me as a kid. And I was like, bro, that makes me feel so good. He's like, I have a couple questions for you. I'm like, all right, what's up? He goes, do you still teach the handshake on the first day of practice? I'm like, yes, like that's what you remember. Like we won 2 championships together. Like we lost 2 games over 2 years, and you want to talk about the handshake? And he was like, yeah, like man, that definitely that stuck with me. And he's like, I'm a wrestler. I don't know if you know that. And like I did, I knew he's like he's a national level wrestler. He goes, I win the match sometimes before it even starts because of the handshake you taught me. He's like, I'll go in and they'll give me the fish and I'll be like, no, shake it like you mean it. And then he'll do it. And he like sees the fear in their eyes and then he attacks them. I'm like, that's amazing. And then he goes, second question, do you still open up the door for Mrs. Coach Leath? And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, after practice, I know that she would come and pick you up and you would run around and open up the door for her and then she'd get in and then you'd get in. And I was like, well, yeah, of course. Of course I do that. And he's just like, yeah, I do it too. Girls love it. And I'm like, yeah, no, dude, like that's awesome. And and I go, is anything else? He's like, no, not really. I'm like, bro, we won 2 championships together. And it just reminded me that these kids, and even during COVID, the winning and losing is fun, but that's not what sports is really, really about. Like, are we supposed to win? Absolutely. Play to win, but also play to be invited back, right? Like Jordan Peterson talks about that. He's like, have your kids be competitive, but if they aren't invited back because nobody likes them, that's a bigger problem because winners are fun, but if they're not fun to be around, then they're going to be lonely. And you see that all the time in sports, these lonely champions. It's like, well, it's because you're kind of a jerk, you know? And so I think that's important to remember that in parenting and in coaching, either way, we are always being watched, always watched.
Coaches, I wanted to take a quick 60-second timeout to tell you about 3 things. Number 1, if you want a free PDF of detailed notes on this episode or any episode of the podcast, subscribe to the Better Coaching newsletter for free today. Number 2, I want to invite you to join the Better Coaching community. It's a free online community of over 500 like-minded coaches from across sports. It's a place to interact with and learn from other coaches. We also have tons of free resources in the classroom section on leadership, culture, practice design, and more. Number 3, this podcast is fueled by RYG Athletics. RYG Athletics is a proud provider of Nike sports camps. We're always looking to add awesome coaches to our network of camp directors. If you're interested in learning more about this paid opportunity and becoming one of our Nike Sports Camp directors, we'd love to hear from you. You can find links to more information on all 3 things in the show details. Now back to the show. Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, we're being watched. It's crazy too. I think about my playing journey. And actually, a few years ago, I sent a message to a former coach of mine. Just said, "Hey, I wanted to tell you, you said this to me when I was a freshman. when we were running sprints, and I've never forgotten it, and it meant so much,
Did they
right?
remember it? Did they remember saying it?
No, he
Yeah.
didn't remember
That
it, but
happens
he
all the
first
time. I'm like, "I
and
said
literally
what?"
he literally goes he's like, "Gromer, you're not very fast. You don't win any of these, but you keep racing. Like, you keep going." And I've never forgotten it, right? Like, those moments, the things we say, yeah, you don't know what's gonna stick, which is terrifying and awesome at the same time. Mm, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your high school coaches. You mentioned one of your books is really dedicated to those coaches, and especially through the lens of, again, you had this childhood where you have a strained relationship with your father, your mom's not in the picture. There's so many coaches coaching athletes that are coming from situations where they've experienced trauma of some kind, or they don't have stability somewhere, right? Like, so I'm just really curious, what did your coaches do well for you that was so formative as you were going through some really tough stuff at home?
And look, that's a good question. And I think where I'll start is that my dad had the backs of the coaches and teachers. So when I when when I found sports in like fifth grade, I was like, this is fantastic. But it wasn't until eighth grade when I had to sit out a flag football game at my elementary school. My school was like K through 8. So I was on the Pop Warner team on Saturdays, but on Fridays I would do flag football. And Wednesday I didn't do my homework. And the coach, Mr. Gabriel, he goes, "Where's your homework, Leith?" And I was like, "I didn't do it." He's like, "Well, you can't play Friday." And I go, "Listen, coach, we're playing Elvina on Friday, and I have to play. We're gonna lose if I don't play." I was a little bit of an egomaniac in eighth grade. But at eighth grade, I peaked. I was never as good as an athlete as I was in eighth grade. I was so much better than everybody else. Everyone caught me in high school, but in eighth grade, that was my year. And I told him, I was like, "We're going to lose." And he's like, "Yeah, probably." I'm like, "What?" Like, so Friday came, or so I went home and I told my dad. And I go, "Dad, Mr. Cable's not going to let me play in the game on Friday." He's like, "Well, what'd you do?" That's a generational question because my dad in 1992 was like, "Well, what'd you do?" In 2025, it's like, well, I'll call the coach. Very, very different, right? So like my dad was like, "What'd you do?" And I go, I didn't do my homework." He's like, "Is that a rule that if you don't do your homework, you can't play in the game on Friday?" I go, "Yeah, but it's not fair." He was like, "Oh no, it's a consequence." He's like, "There's no emotion behind it. That's you didn't do your homework, you don't play. Everybody still loves you, maybe a little disappointed. But that's a different way to raise a kid. Like, they don't do that a lot these days. Now it's like, let me call the coach, let me make a donation, let me, call in a favor, all this crap that the thing is on Friday, we played Elvina, and I was on the sideline, and we lost. And we lost specifically because of things that I would have contributed. It was very obvious. Like, they knew that I wasn't in, and they had took advantage of it. So I'm walking to the locker room, and, I'm walking with the coach. And I was like, "It was a rough game." He was like, "Yeah, it's your fault that we lost." And I was like, "Cool." He's like, "Don't let that happen again." I go, "Okay." I never got in trouble again. I never missed another game. My dad didn't call the school and have Mr. Gabriel fired. It literally changed my life because then in that moment, I realized, okay, so there are consequences to decisions, and I'm not going to be able to play. Playing is a privilege, not a right. So I was no longer a problem in school. I did my work. I showed up to class. I didn't, I was a jokester, so I would get in trouble every once in a while, but never enough to miss anything. And my school, Central High School, Fresno, California, was very sport centric. So I probably got away with a lot more than I should have, which is why it took me 8 years to get my bachelor's degree. So that's a whole nother story. But it finished with a master's, so I redeemed myself. Yeah, I was blessed, man. Like people have stories about teachers being like, "You're never gonna amount to anything." And my senior year English teacher, Miss Randall, who's has passed away, she pulled me aside and she was like, "You're not dumb." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "You're just not applying yourself. You don't understand this because you're not doing the work." Like, she gave me this thing. She was like, "You'd be so much better if you just applied yourself." It wasn't like a shame. It was a, "Hey, It was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. And if she knew today that I've published 8 books, like she'd take all the credit. That's what she would do.
Yeah, and she should.
She'd
Yeah.
take all of it, man. So yeah, she would do that. But I had mostly great coaches that I learned a little bit from. And then I had a few awful coaches that I learned a lot from. I learned because I remember I played my senior year. I played volleyball. I'm not shaped like a volleyball. I'm shaped like a fullback. But I went out for the volleyball team my senior year with a group of guys that have been playing together for like 6 years, club volleyball. I have no skill in volleyball. I lost a bet. That's why I tried out. Uh, I made the team, which means somebody didn't make the team that had been playing for a long time. And to this day, that person still does not like me. But uh, I remember when I saw I was on the list, I was number 15 on the list. I took the list into McCarthy's office and I was like, hey, how did I make the team? Basically. And he was just like, he's like, well, you're not very good. And I'm like, what? He goes, listen, what happens at the end of practice? And I go, we run sprints. He goes, yeah, what happens? I go, I always come in first. And he goes, that really angers the other players. And I was like, that's a good thing. He was like, no, it makes them work harder. I go, oh, okay. And he goes, lift up your shorts. And I had this huge bruise on my shorts from diving into the stands. Because the first week I was just they were aiming at me and it was just bouncing off my face. But they were surprised. They're like, James, you're not afraid. You don't flinch. And I'm like, it's a volleyball. I'm a quarterback. I get chased by 350-pound defensive ends. I'm not afraid of Wilson, like this little ball coming. Oh no, like I'm just here. It's not going to hurt me. And so then, the second week I started actually returning them, started getting better, which is another argument for multiple sport athletes, right? Because I had skills from other sports. So anyways, McCarthy was like, dude, you're not going to play very much, but I need you on the team because you're a good leader. Like people look up to you, and I think it'd be a fun experience. He's like, I'll give you a varsity letter and take you to Vegas for our tournament. And I'm like, awesome. The next week, I went from number 15 to number 3 on the list because I was a team voted captain. So that taught me that it's not about talent. There's more that you can bring to the game than your ability to score points. And for any team sport, that's real. Like, I mean, in individual sports, a little different. You're wrestling, like you got to win. But my point is, I know this has been a little long answer, but I hope it's okay. My point is that my coaches showed me a lot more about life than they did about sports. And McCarthy specifically, because on our way home from Vegas, that Vegas trip, I asked him, hey, how do you get a job as an adult? And I remember when I asked him that question, probably 2 hours later, he was done with his answer. And it worked. And the thing that I took away from that is when you go on an interview for a job, as soon as you enter into the parking lot, they're watching you. And my first job as an adult, mind body, I was an account specialist at this tech company in San Luis Obispo, California. I show up, I park, and I'm walking to the door and I see a piece of trash on the ground. I picked up the trash, put it in the trash can. Not a big deal, dude. Social contract, right? So I walk in, about 10 minutes into the interview, my eventual boss just stopped. She was like, listen, I saw you in the parking lot. I saw you pick up trash, put it in the trash. You were hired at that moment. This is just bonus. And I was like, so that's how life works. People are always watching, even when they're not, like all the time. And I learned that on a van ride home from Vegas, playing a sport that I wasn't good at from a coach that wanted to invest in one of his players. And that
Yeah,
has stayed with me forever. And so I've just continued that legacy.
that's special. I think there's two things worth highlighting. One, your flag football coach, that he had the backbone to say, hey, this is the consequence and I'm going to enforce it, even though it's going to hurt my team. I was thinking the other day about a game that I was coaching a couple years ago, a basketball game. And yeah, I had to sit one of our best players out for the first quarter, and we lost the game by like 5 points. It's like it might have been different if he was
Right.
playing, right? But the commitment to recognize that this is about more than this moment and this game and this result, and it's about helping James succeed in the rest of his life is so admirable from him. And then your volleyball coach, his ability to speak into you and to call out the good in you. Um, and that's so powerful too, as coaches, that, we have the ability to do that. Say, hey, I need you to bring this to our team, or you do bring this to our team. And because too many athletes, like they don't know those things, right? They've got stories in their own head that um, are often not true. And for us to be able to speak into them and say,
Right.
hey, this is what you bring, this is what you can bring, this is what I see in you. That's so powerful for their internal narratives, for the health of your team, et cetera. Yeah, so I love those things. Thanks for sharing those stories from your coaches. Those are special. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that a coach is like, Billy Graham, he said, coaches will speak more into the lives of their athletes than anybody else in the world, and even parents too. Cause like, yeah, you live at your parents' house, but you wake up in the morning, parents are getting ready for work. You grab something, you go to school. So there's no interaction there. You might hang out with your coach at lunch. I remember we would go and watch game film in the coach's office during lunch, whatever sport I was playing. And then after school, I'm there for 3 hours. And I get home, my parents are tired, they're making dinner. There's not a whole lot of communication. So the communication really is with coaches. What an honor that is. And during the pandemic, I put on I'll never do this again, but I put my phone number on Twitter. And I was like, if any coaches or athletes need somebody to talk to, I got blown up. So many coaches and athletes. And the older the athlete, the thing that they enjoyed the most was that parents weren't allowed to practice. And at the time I was working on the Chicago Bulls, and we would run the Windy City Bulls. We would have some games, and they were just like, "This is great." I'm like, "There's no fans," and they're like, "I know. We can just play basketball." Like you don't realize that. It's just like when you go to an NBA basketball game and all these people are talking trash on the other team. It's like, that's not necessary. Can we just watch the game? Can we just relax a little bit? But yeah, so there's so much to coaching, and it's such a beautiful way to be like a bonus dad or
Yeah,
mom.
it's powerful. Such a powerful platform. I'm really curious to learn more about your journey into mental performance. And you went and got a master's degree in that. What prompted you to do that? And then maybe we can talk more specifically about how coaches can integrate that into their coaching.
Yeah, I blame Jillian Michaels. She gets 100% of the blame for my career trajectory. Because I wanted to be a strength coach. I was training, I was doing boot camps, I was doing Biggest Loser and stuff. And I was at this conference in Chicago, URSA conference, and I was backstage, and I was about to go out and speak, and then Jillian was going on after me. And so we're backstage in the green room, we're chatting up, and I go like, "What do you read?" And she's like, "I know what you read." She's like super abrasive. And she's like, "You read like sets and reps and anatomy and nutrition." And I go, "Yeah, well, guilty. Like that's my whole library right there." She's like, "You need to stop reading those books. You need to read books on psychology, and because your clients are lying to you all the time." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense." So when I got home and she gave me a list of books to read, like Influencer and I don't remember, it was so long ago, but I started reading those books, and it was life changing because I realized that as a personal trainer and a strength coach, if their head's not right, the workout's not going to go very well. And I already knew intuitively that sometimes people just need to go for a walk and people need to chat, and just talk about stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to be in these weight rooms the rest of my life. So let me go see what this is. Then I found a job posting that said uh, the White Sox were looking for a sports psychologist. Now in high school, I didn't do very good academically. I was like a C, B student, but I got A's in PE and psychology, always. It was so easy to me. For some reason, chemistry, no idea why, but I did really well in chemistry too. So I was like, okay, well, psychology is awesome, sports awesome, and I had never seen those two words together in a sentence. I'm like 27. And I'm like, this is a body of knowledge of sports psychology. I dive into it. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's an entire literature and research on sports psychology. And so I was married at the time, and I asked my former wife, I'm like, hey, what is this? And she goes, I don't know, but it sounds perfect for you. And I'm like, should I go to school? And she was like, yeah, go for it. So I went and got my master's. Before I got done with my master's, um, I had found IMG Academy in Florida. And so I took the head of mental performance, the job posting, because at the time they were looking for one, and I printed it out and I put it above my computer. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to use that as a checklist to be someone that IMG would hire. Like I had no idea that I would eventually be at IMG Academy. But I did that and I'm starting to check things off. And, by chance, I go to this conference in Indianapolis, ASP conference. Anybody in sports psychology will know that. That's the governing body. And I knew exactly who to talk to. And I went after, Taryn and David and these guys, these people that work at IMG Academy. And most of them had already heard of me. And it was because of John O'Sullivan, who I had been working with through Changing the Game project. And I had been posting blog posts and putting out a newsletter. And so it's just so interesting how all these things kind of fall in place when you follow after, what your heart wants to do. And what I wanted to do more than anything is just make sports fun for kids. And so I got the job at IMG Academy. I finished my master's degree, and life just kept on happening.
Oh, it's so awesome. Uh, it hasn't been published yet, but actually about 6 weeks ago, I gave a TEDx talk in Fayetteville, and the
That's
title was,
amazing. What was the topic?
yeah, "The Missing Ingredient in Youth Sport." You can probably
Let's
guess it.
go. I
The
can't wait to
missing
watch it.
Yeah, thanks. The missing ingredient is fun, and I'm sure you're aware of that too. So, um, yeah, I resonate deeply with what you shared there. Like, man, sport needs to be more fun for kids. We got to keep them in it, right? I mean, my life was shaped in sports and at camps, and so yeah, the amount of kids that are missing out on those lifelong benefits of it, the things that you've shared, et cetera. Yeah, I think our heart's in the same spot there. But I want to talk more about the mental performance side of things. Talk to me about what you would advise a coach to focus on who doesn't have access to someone like you, right? They don't have a sports psych that they can work with or can work with their team or their players. They're coaching at the youth level or the junior high or the high school level, or maybe they're coaching college, but it's not a top D1 program, et cetera. Where does a coach start as far as integrating mental performance principles into their coaching, into their program, helping their athletes be at their best mentally?
Man, where to start? Practice. Uh, the organization of practice. Number one, lines. You should not have more than 3 kids in a line, period. That kid number 4 has checked out. And by the time they get up to the front, they probably don't even, they're not watching, right? I say that at conferences, and and like, there's a 500 people in the audience. I get 500 people nodding, going, yes, that's exactly right. But that takes a little bit of organization. It takes you don't have to be John Wooden with like every minute and every second is dedicated to this cone and this right here, but this cone porn that these coaches have, and they have all these cones set up, drills. They went to a professional team, and like they're like, okay, hold on, like what is happening here? Like, are you practicing to get better at drills? Or are you practicing to be able to compete in the game? Those practices look different. So if you have a practice where the kids are moving around and they're learning how to make decisions and they're winning and they're losing and they're competing and there's pressure and they're stressed, by the time they get to the game, they've already experienced that stuff. But if practice is perfectly orchestrated so that they don't have to stress about anything and they're just working on the physical skills, of course they're going to break down in the tournament on Saturday. They've never had stress. And so you need to introduce stress into practice and make it be consistent. So first, I would start with making practice a place where there's room to fail, and they're encouraged to try things that they're not quite ready to use in the game. Like you have a 7th grader who just learned a crossover. maybe practice that for a few weeks before you pull it out in the championship. Like, have that kind of experience first. The second thing would be game day. Game day should be completely stress-free. And I would advise coaches to teach kids to be very selfish on game day. That I teach this thing called the 3-hour shield. So if you have a 12 o'clock game at 9 a.m., you should be completely selfish for those 3 hours. Get off your phone, talk to your teammates. Mom and dad, I'm not going to respond to any text. Boyfriend, girlfriend, don't reach out to me. I'm not checking TikTok. I am just preparing. If I need to nap, if I need to eat, if I need to work out, whatever I need to do for those 3 hours, by the time the whistle blows or whatever starts the competition, you're ready, right? That's huge. You can also apply that to practice where it's like an hour or so before practice, don't be distracted. The third thing, I had it and it was, I guess something really important would be over communicate with the parents. The more you over communicate with parents, the less they're going to bother you about questions. Make it very easy to follow a schedule. Don't change things on the fly because your sport and your team is not the most important thing to that parent. And they're the ones who bring your kids to the practice. And so um, I think setting those expectations is really important. Gosh, this is just off the top of my head. Another thing I would say is be be intentional about the difference between punishment and discipline. So if you have a 5 o'clock practice and one of your athletes' parents works until 4:45, there's a good chance that kid's going to be late. That kid should not be punished for that, and the team should understand that. That it's like it's not we're not playing favorites, even though every coach does have favorites. I've written an article about that, and it's my most shared article because we all have favorites. But uh, you just talk to the kid and be like, listen, when you get here, I need you to warm up. Here's the warm up. And then come and find out what you've missed and get into practice because we know you're going to be late, right? There's a difference if you have a 17-year-old who has to take his girlfriend home after practice or after school and then he's late to practice. That's very different than mom and dad. It's struggling to get your kid on practice on time.
Yeah, one they control, one they have no control over.
Zero control. Like, dude, if your girlfriend's more important than the team, leave. Like, we don't. I'll give your jersey to somebody else. This is a privilege. Um, and I speak from experience because I got in trouble for taking my girlfriend home after school my junior year, and I just did that once, and that was it. But in that case, what was interesting is that I was in a pod. My coach had a way of consequences and teaching leadership. So there was a pod leader, and then there was like 4 or 5 guys underneath the pod leader. And if one of those 4 or 5 guys did something wrong, the pod leader did the consequence. So when I showed up for practice late, my leader had to do the bear crawls. And he was pretty upset. So we ended up, what happened is after a couple of weeks of doing that, and during those, we actually did them with him. We didn't have to, but we felt bad. Well, that's accountability. That's teamwork. That's suffering together. That kind of stuff translates onto the field during the game where you're putting your life on the line. So I guess that was it. It was kind of a hodgepodge of stuff, but there's so many things, but it's not a lot, right? I mean, organize practice, make game day very stress-free where everybody knows what's going on. Don't change things last minute. Don't punish kids, set consequences. When Mr. Gabriel told me I wasn't playing that Friday, he wasn't emotional about it at all. He was like, "Oh, you didn't do your homework. You're not playing." I'm like, "But I have to." I was emotional when he was like, "No, no, no." And I remember him saying this like to this day, and he's still alive, so I get to play golf with him every couple of years. But I just remember him going, he's like, Jimmy, I still like you. I'm not mad at you at all. You decided not to do homework, so you're not playing on Friday." That was it. It made it a lot easier to look at it as a life lesson instead of being like, "Man, F Coach Gabriel, man, he's blah, blah." Like kids like to blame coaches for their own shortcomings. Oh, that's another one. Okay. So this one's super important. Don't get mad at the kids because you didn't prepare. Don't take it out on the kids because of your inability to communicate. Go learn how to communicate. If you have a situation where you've lost your mind on the sideline you need to grab the team together and be like, that was embarrassing. I'm sorry I let my mind go like that. And I was yelling and it was not good. If you're in physical shape, do the punishment with them. Kids love that. If you have a no cursing policy on your team and you curse, you better do the push-ups right in front of them or struggle doing them so they can make fun of you because they'll love that and they'll love you for it. I think it's important to be human in front of our
Yeah,
athletes.
that's really good. Yeah, there's so much there. One, I love what you highlighted at the beginning. If our practice environment doesn't contain the same stressors that the game contains, they're not going to be prepared mentally for what they experience there. That's so important. If you have a perfect, pretty practice that doesn't prepare them for the game, what are we doing? How can we expect them to be mentally tough and know how to handle winning and losing if we don't compete in our practices? Um, that's so key, I think, for coaches at any level. And I'm coaching first grade basketball right now, and it's 3-on-3, and it's ridiculous and a mess, but it's awesome. And we practice in a school gym, and there's 4 side hoops, and there's a team at each hoop, right? And so I see 3 other practices going simultaneously. And those coaches are all volunteers. They're doing the best they can with what they know, I'm sure. But their practices don't contain much of what the game contains, right? And kids don't even look like they're having a ton of fun, right? They're not getting meaningful reps, etc. Right? But then also on the mental side of it, are you competing? Are there winners and losers? Are they learning how to handle that? I think it's so key. The other thing that I'm really curious on, and mainly because I've coached many athletes like this, and I'm still trying to figure out if I've done a good job of it or not, and maybe do better next time. Uh, how how can we lead athletes well who tend to crumble under the pressure or adversity of calls that they don't like ref makes a bad call against them, and it's like the switch is flipped. They're playing with tunnel vision now. They're not in that optimal performance state. What can we do as coaches, either in those moments in the games or before? Obviously, we've been talking a little bit about just creating an environment where that stuff exists too. But how do we engage with those athletes effectively when it happens in the game, right? The refs makes a call. They're no longer in the optimal state. What do we do?
Well, it's a great question, but it differs on sport, right? So if it's soccer, like you're probably not going to be able to like talk with that coach, like because the game keeps moving. Baseball, like you can have the discussion. Athletes need to see that their coaches have their back, but also they need to be able to like keep their cool. So if a kid gets a bad call and the coach goes up into the ref, the coach needs to pull the kid aside and be like, I will handle this. Like, you need to go calm down. And then the assistant coach or whatever needs to grab him and be like, hey, breathe. We got this. Coach is talking to him. The best thing you can do as a coach is ask the ref, one, what did you see? And what do I need to coach my kid on? The ref will tell you. 2 things will happen. The ref will be like, okay, well, this is what he did. He's been doing this all game. And the second thing is he'll be or she will be appreciative that you're actually trying to help the referee. Right. Again,
Or
it's
the
like,
third one is they'll say, you know what, I think I missed that call. And you're like, okay, cool. Let's move on.
yeah. And
Yeah.
but there's a teachable moment where you can go to the
Yeah.
kid and be like, hey, he missed the call. Every time you shoot the ball, you don't make it either. You're not perfect. Shut up. Get in there. Like you're going to be fine. But coaches need to emulate the kind of respect that they ask for from their athletes. If they don't, because like we said at the beginning, these kids are looking for ways to be an adult. And when dad is at home on Sunday screaming because his Jets are losing again, don't be surprised when your kid sees that and then takes it and then uses it at practice and during the game because they're learning it from somewhere. And we can't blame TikTok for everything. They're watching you. So one of the best things you can do as a coach is talk about that kind of stuff. I remember a situation as a freshman playing JV, and we had just finished our game, and we were playing a huge rivalry. The varsity coach, okay, so our best running back gets tackled on the sideline, Fresno High. That coach picks up the running back and throws him on the ground. immediate chaos, right? Crowd emptying into the field could have happened. What did happen is every player sprinted to our head coach. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. Sprinted to Coach Bog, took a knee, and just looked up at him because they had been taught if there's ever a fight, you find your head coach and you get next to him. So here is his name was McDaniel. McDaniel was a little guy, so he was very elusive. The other coach, and I can see it to this day, I kind of grabbed him and pushed him, and he kind of fell to the ground. He didn't even fight. He just went to the coach because they had practiced that. And so what didn't happen is nobody from Central got kicked out of the game. What did happen is that coach was asked to leave. He probably got fired. I don't know what happened to him. Or they made him, or they put him on a 5-minute timeout. It was a different time in the 90s. So you have to practice that kind of stuff. And when I was a 6th grade football coach, I had a couple things going for me. We were very good, but it wasn't because we had better athletes. I taught my football players how to be athletes and make one of two decisions. That's it. And if they made a decision and it was wrong, they still made a decision. It was in the attempt, right? And you can do that as a 6th grade coach. I'm not getting paid by the Niners to be a football coach, So when I got to practice started at 3:05. At 3:04, I would blow the whistle really loud, just one whistle. And they knew they had 1 minute. Whatever they're doing, they're fixing it up. And then I would blow the whistle 3 times really loud. And they had 10 seconds to get to the line. And we drilled it. The first day of practice, I lined them up, taught them how to handshake, did that whole thing. I know we haven't talked about that, but it's kind of like a thing that I love to do. And then I was like, okay, go play. And when I blow the whistle, know you have a minute. And then a minute goes by and I go, and they sprint to the line. And they didn't do it fast enough. This is the first day of practice. I'm like, okay, go play. We do it again. Once we have that, I don't have to teach that anymore. Now they know 1 whistle, 1 minute, 3 whistles, 10 seconds to get to the line. And then I would have like a 10-minute recess in between, like at the middle of practice, which was like a halftime, so they could do whatever you want. During this time, I would go so the parents would sit on one side and I would go to the other side of the field with my coach, and we would sit down on lawn chairs and talk about practice and watch the kids have fun because these are 6th graders and they're having a great time. The only rule is don't tackle to the ground. You can goof off however you want. I found a guy who could kick. I'm like, I didn't know you could kick. Dude, you're my new kicker. I found a lineman that could catch the ball. I'm like, oh, we're going to run a tight end pass. Like, this is great. Like, you let the kids, and then you come back and I blow the whistle. They have 1 minute. Oh, I didn't go to the bathroom. They go to the bathroom real quick. 3 whistles, they're on the line. I trained that on the first day. I don't have to do it again. Pete Carroll did that with USC. I would go to USC every summer and I would watch their practices when he was coaching there. And during his warm-up, he would have them huddle and then get to formations and then jog 10 yards. And then they come back, huddle, formations. So he's practicing formations during the warm-up. Well, guess what? Now I don't have to practice formations during practice because I'm doing it during warm-up. And also, as 7th grader, how long do they need to warm up? They've been running around all day. Like, what is this 40-minute warm-up process? Like, no. That's for adults who are chronically injured, who play for our entertainment on Sundays. They need an hour to warm up. Your 5th grader just needs a ball and some direction, right? Another thing is like I coached at the YMCA girls basketball, and the basic skills: dribble, jump, stop, shoot, hit the backboard. So we would do that. They dribble, grab it, jump, stop, and then throw it up to the wall. There's not even a board. So that I would start practice with that, 5 minutes of that. And then I would be like, all right, just find a basket and hit the top corner. Just hit the top corner. Don't aim for the basket, hit the top corner. Basket after basket after basket. So now I'm coaching girls basketball and we're winning 18-6. And the girls aren't better. They just have the fundamentals. All you need to do is not travel, so we keep the ball, get a rebound, and hit the little corner of the square, not the basket. Because if you hit the corner of the square, it's going to go in most of the time. And so that's the secret of coaching youth sports. And when I wrote a book called Coaching with Purpose, and it's like 5 fundamentals of youth sport coaching. And that's what it is. It's just keep it simple. Like your player handbook and getting to know your players should be a lot bigger than your playbook. If you have a 5th grade football team, you should have like 8 plays. Why do you have different formations? What are you doing? You don't need different formations. When I coached at that sororian school, we went like pretty much we lost 2 games in 2 years. I had one formation. And if I needed to change it, I could change it from the sideline. That was it. If I could change a play. This was really fun. I'm having like flashbacks. We had practiced this in practice, and I would go, check, check. And everybody would look at me. And I would be like, sweep right. And they'd tap their hat and they'd ready, set, go. And they'd run, sweep right. And we practiced that during practice. During the game, I would go, check, check, sweep right. And they tap it and we'd run, sweep right. But these are 6th graders. So the defense is like, they're going right. So all of them would run right, which is their right, our left. Boom, you score. So we also practice that in the second half, whatever I do, if I go check, check, I'm not changing the play. The play does not change in the second half. So I go check, check, sweep right, and they're running like a counter left. Like it doesn't matter what I say because I'm not playing those athletes. I'm playing the strategic of the coach and the kids' preparation. But you have to practice that kind of stuff. And you have to keep things simple if it's going to stick.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, keep it simple, stupid. We can overcomplicate it, especially at
Oh,
the
most
youth
do.
levels, even at the higher levels. Like, hey, let's let them play.
Well,
Uh,
those assistant coaches or those volunteer coaches are running practice like they ran in high school.
yeah,
And the
they're
kids
just doing
just
what
like,
they
"What is
experienced.
happening?
Yeah,
This is crazy. I can't even dribble a ball. You want me to run a play?"
yeah, yeah. Or we think that having them, dribble in these lines without defense is going to help them get ready to dribble when the game's chaotic, etc. So, James, this has been awesome. Before we wrap it up, I got 3 rapid fire
We
questions
done?
for
It's
you.
an hour already? Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. We're having too much fun.
You let me go, dude. Like,
I know. I love it. 3 questions that come, or just share the first thing that comes to your mind about your experience coaching. Could be coaching sport, could be mental performance coaching, any and all of it. Uh, my favorite part of coaching is
oh, my favorite part of coaching is getting invited 10 years later to their wedding.
that's sweet, special.
That's when I know it was good. Like I remember I went back to my old high school and I was talking to my old coach and I was like, "How's the team look?" And he's like, "I won't know for about 10 years." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "That's when I'll know if they're good fathers, if they're good husbands in the community." I was like, how are you guys playing?" And he was like, "That doesn't really matter." I was like, "Oh, interesting. Okay."
Yeah, that's the kind of guy you want around your kids. As a parent, that's who I want around my kids.
100%.
That's good. The second one, I wish I would have known blank before my first coaching experience.
Uh, I wish I would have known that uh, showing emotional resiliency is very important for a child. And so if I get mad at a performance and I raise my voice, and then I can go like, what are you doing? Come here, come here. Hey, why did you do that? If I knew how to be able to rubber band those emotions sooner, because kids love that. And it's confusing to them because they're like, coach is mad at me. And then you get close to coach and coach is like, hey, what'd you see out there? What happened? And that kind of goes along with whenever a kid makes a mistake, the best thing that you can say to them is, what'd you see out there? Like, why'd you make that decision? You don't want them to think that you think that they're trying to sabotage the game, because they're not. Every kid wants to win.
They're
And
doing their best.
my first interception I threw as a junior, I come to the sideline, I'm so embarrassed. And my coach is like, come here. What'd you see out there? And I was like, am I in trouble? He's like, we'll get the ball back. What'd you see? I was like, well, they hid cover 2 and they actually covered 3, whatever it was. And he's like, okay, cool. Thanks. Get ready. You're going back out there. Like, that was it. I wasn't in trouble, nothing. I'm like, oh, now I don't have to worry about getting in trouble. You know how much better I'm going to play if I'm not afraid to make a mistake? So much
Just go
better.
let it rip.
But
Yeah, I love it. This one might be similar to your first, but I'll ask it to you anyway. I know I'm successful as a coach when
They're sad the season's over, and it's not because there's no more games. It's because they're not going to be able to hang out with each other, and you're not going to hang out with me and the staff. I think
yeah,
that's a good. I mean, I've coached teams. We've gone undefeated. We've gone defeated, and whether my best coaching experience, we actually went 0-10. It was fifth grade football. And long story short, we were put in the wrong league and they couldn't change it. So we lost every game. But at the end of the season, I asked them, I go, who's coming back? And everybody was like, we're coming back. And then the next year, they just destroyed everybody because they were allowed to suck for a year. And they were like, we're not
yeah,
doing that again. And that was huge. But there was a note in there too, in that 3 games into the season, I had this center, Ellen. We were shotgun, so she was like my best lineman. She would just throw back there. She was awesome. She goes, Coach, are we going to win a game this year? And I had one of those like Zach Morris moments. I don't know if that ages me, but like I like time out and I'm just like, do I lie to this kid or do I tell him the truth? And I was like, you know what, Ellen? Probably not. I go, success on the scoreboard is going to be hard. These kids are better than us. They're taller than us. They're way more than us. We're in the wrong league. It's obvious that they've admitted it, but they can't change it. So we changed what success was. And I told them, I was like, tomorrow I need you to come back and teach me what to ask you at the end of a game if we lose. So like with Allen, it was like no fumbled snaps. With my linebackers, it was like plugging every hole. My receivers, getting a hand on any ball that's thrown to me. And they had a lot more fun. So we changed what success looked like. And we also taught the parents, look, this is what you need to ask your kid. Not how did you play? Not did you win? I'm just like, hey, did you have a successful night? Tell me about it. It's a way better
yeah.
question.
That's awesome. So powerful. That's so good. James, before we hop off, share with the listeners where they can connect with you, learn more about your work, get your books, etc.
I appreciate that, man. James Leath, Leath.com. That's all the links and stuff. I'm creating a curriculum right now that it's called Coach Pass, and it's like one word a week where I'll give like a definition of it, an activity around it, like something like to coach cues, a question that you can teach the parents to ask the kid to be like, the motivation came from this. I watched this coach talk about integrity, and then I pulled the captain aside afterwards, and I go, "What's integrity mean?" And he was like, "I don't really know." I'm like, "The coach just explained it to you," and he's like, "Yeah, but I didn't really get it." So it was really heady, and so that's not a knock on the coach. It's just there was this opportunity. It was like, okay, kids need stories. They need uh, anecdotes and illustrations to help them. So I came up with this thing with integrity. It's like integrity is like a boat. If you poke a couple holes in it, it's not going to sink, but it's going to be really wet. And those holes can be lying, cheating on a test, you know,
Hmm.
taking drugs, whatever it is. But eventually the hull of the boat will lose its integrity when those holes get bigger. And so you want to keep those holes filled and have no holes at all. That's integrity. And now the kids understand what it is. So you're gonna be like, listen, you need to have integrity. Kids like, yeah, you're right. Respect, how to, competition. What does competition look like if I'm not a starter? It's like, that looks a little bit different. We need some ideas. So I'm building that and that'll be out in the next couple of weeks.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, James, I'm so grateful for your time and all that you shared today. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on, Luke. It was good. It's nice meeting you.
Coaches, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast, and a huge thanks to James for joining us. To learn more about him and his work, check out the show details for links to his website and other resources. And if you'd like to get a free PDF of the show notes, or join our free online community of coaches, or learn more about becoming one of our Nike Sports Camp directors, you can check out the links in the show details to learn more about any and all of those things. Thanks for listening.